Yes, ma'am.
The U.S. Attorney dismissed, I think it was 4 or 5 small-time drug cases shortly after receiving a legal memo written by Paul Richmond, citing a lot of different case law. Then he also made a public statement to the Border Patrol to not send any more small-time drug cases to the U.S. Attorney. So are you still arresting small-time drug people? Or what are you doing with them?
Absolutely, it's our authority. We have to use our authority for Title 21 from the Drug Enforcement Agency.
So why do you think the U.S. Attorney dismissed 4 or 5 small-time drug cases and told you not to send them anymore?
Caseload issues. He has a statement.
There's been some inference, some places, some misinformation spread that they were dismissed because they were unconstitutional.
It was immediately after receiving a legal memo, citing all kinds of case law.
I'll actually read his statement, Mr. Sullivan, the U.S. Attorney. Today, I inform the Border Patrol that all future small possession cases may be referred to state or local law enforcement. That would infer to me that they're not unconstitutional, but will not be pursued by the U.S. Attorney's Office due to a lack of federal interest in the prosecution. Sullivan said Thursday in a statement released to the Seattle PI and Port Angeles newspaper. Sullivan said his office focuses on prosecuting sophisticated criminal organizations who smuggle millions of dollars of drugs, guns, and other contraband across our borders. Through the conversations we had with the U.S. Attorney Sullivan, he suggested that we take some of the smaller cases to state and locals and see if they're willing to prosecute them. If they are in fact not, we still are required under the law to seize any marijuana that we encounter or any drugs or anything of that nature. It's a Title 21 violation of U.S. Code, and as a federal agency, we have to seize it.
So you think it was a coincidence that the U.S. Attorney made this decision 1 or 2 days after receiving this legal memo citing all kinds of case law?
I'm not familiar with a legal memo that was sent to the U.S. Attorney.
Well,
I think the U.S. Attorney typically says what he means.
If I may speak to it then, since I'm the author. Look, you go back to 1787, there's probably never been a time when all of the parts of the Constitution have been enforced. What's going on here, what people are saying is going on here, being charitable, is not unique. But what the policy that I've always seen happen when you have an unconstitutional law, and I've seen it through civility laws in Portland, I've seen it through civility laws in Seattle, whenever someone brings a challenge to it through the criminal venue, charges get dropped. I mean, now you keep citing back to U.S. v. Martinez, but it's been modified by case after case. Illinois versus Lidster, City of Indianapolis, both of those say you can't use checkpoints for ordinary crime control purposes. So what that person's talking about there goes out the window. Similarly, under other cases subsequent to U.S. v. Martinez, such as U.S. v. Ramsey, and cases derivative of that, State v. Quick, U.S. v. Potter, there has to be a connection between the actual traffic and your checkpoint, even with 100 miles.
traffic from the border.
Yeah, the traffic from the border, correct. You can't, if what you're basically allowed to be looking for is traffic coming from our nearest border, Canada, if you can prove there's a major throughway. Now I understand that there have been some Canadians stopped, if I'm correct, it's 131 is the number that you gave me?
130 plus.
130, okay, so 130 out of more than 40,000 people that have been stopped. Have you looked at the...
was that second number you just threw out?
Out of more than 40,000? I guess that's out of the...
No, there were 4,000 vehicles.
4,000?
Just roughly above 4,000 vehicles. Yes, correct.
Okay.
Just want to make sure.
Okay, I appreciate your correction on that. But have you analyzed, who has analyzed the law for you of these cases subsequent to Martinez Fuerte? Because every time I've spoken to you, and You know, my wife's in the room. My gosh, guys, I'm starting to recognize you guys more than my wife. We're seeing each other more.
I'm feeling the same way, sir.
And you want to have coffee after that? Anyway.
I'll bring it.
Look, who has analyzed for you, given you an opinion that these subsequent cases do not override Martinez-Fuerte? Because that's the only case I've ever heard you cite. These other cases take away piece of it after piece of it, and Martinez-Fuerte, very limited in terms of what the circumstances in which you're allowed to stop. Very limited intrusion. No more than a couple of minutes under the people that were actually stopped in Martinez-Fuerte. My guy, at close to an hour.
I'm not going to specifically go into any specific cases.
I'm not asking you to go into specific cases, but who has given you the advice that Martinez-Fuerte is still the controlling law, that these other cases do not modify it, that what you are doing is legal under the letter of these laws, under U.S. v. Potter, under U.S. v. Ramsey, under City of Indianapolis, under Illinois versus
Protection
Lickster.
has a chief counsel's office, which is an office full of attorneys that advise us on the legality and constitutionality of things we do. So that would probably be the place that you would be looking for.
Have they, to your knowledge, specifically advised you on these subsequent cases that I've cited and that I cited to the U.S. Attorney, as far as you know?
They have been in...
If that's beyond your knowledge, I understand that, but have they?
I believe they've been in contact with the U.S. Attorney's Office and discussed some of them. But beyond that, I'm not aware.
You haven't yourself have not looked at these cases.
Usually what it is we have a checkpoint policy, and the policy will dictate what we do at these policies. We abide by the United States, the Border Patrol policies on setting up and working checkpoints. But while we're conducting our immigration checkpoint and we identify a crime that has occurred in our presence, as a customs officer / immigration officer, federal agent, we will at that time make the appropriate action of this offense that occurs in our presence. And that's within our
There are two other cases. U.S. versus Ellis, have you heard of that one?
If you give me the site to it, I'll take a look at it.
Let's see, U.S. versus Ellis, when the purpose of a stop switches from enforcement of immigration laws to drug interdiction, a Fourth Amendment violation occurs unless the agent has individualized suspicion of wrongdoing. So that one addresses your case quite closely.
What year is that one?
It is U.S. versus Ellis.
The year.
I do not have the year on that one.
Have you, and I appreciate you guys coming out here, talking to us, talking to a hostile crowd, coming through snow to be here. That's a lot.
Thank you.
I'll give you that. But have you actually read any of those cases that I've cited? Are there?
I've read Martinez-Fuerte in depth. U.S. versus Ellis, I have read parts of it, not all of it. There is U.S. versus Rubio Rivera, which is another one. Border Patrol agents are not required to ignore suspicious circumstances. So if we do have an immigration checkpoint...
That doesn't...
Say
Okay.
you have to.
That
well,
doesn't
a lot
say,
of folks say, well, you're running an immigration checkpoint, so why are you looking at drugs? Well, by this court case, we are not required to ignore anything that's suspicious that we encounter.
You're not required to ignore it, but it also doesn't overrule the purpose of those other
Which
cases.
goes back to U.S. versus Ellis.
But you haven't. I guess my point is you haven't read the cases that I've cited.
So, some of them I have, some of them I have not, and I cannot specifically state which I have and have not. But Martinez-Fuerte, I'm very familiar with.
Thank you.
Martinez-Fuerte is still basically the primer for our U.S. Border Patrol checkpoints. Basically what it says is it allows minimal intrusion, and it says it's not a violation of anyone's Fourth Amendment rights. And that minimal intrusion is what that is you drive up to our checkpoint, you stop at our stop sign, the agent who is at primary says, good evening or good morning, U.S. Border Patrol, can you please state your citizenship? If you say you're a United States citizen and that agent has no reason to believe that you're not telling the truth, it says, have a nice day. That minimal intrusion accounts for about 10 seconds. If that Border Patrol agent has reasonable suspicion to warrant further investigation, that goes beyond that minimal intrusion, which is allowed per Martinez-Fuerte. So,
I've got a concern about minimal intrusion. Highway 101 is the highway that runs along the coast. I mean, there